from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, cotton acres return to the southern plains.
I'm Tyne Morgan. There's an expectation for an increase in cotton acres by USDA this week. But how could dry weather in areas like right here in Oklahoma impact that? We'll have that story today.
Plus, the president pushes for NAFTA negotiations to pick up the pace. In agribusiness, prepping for the plantings report.
If you would get sub 89 on corn, it would definitely be a very friendly thing for the long term.
Cuties take on Easter on the Packer TV. And do you know Jack? Jack's Pizza, the story behind the pie.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. USDA will release the highly anticipated prospective plantings report tomorrow. We'll get an early season look at what farmers intend to plant. Most private analytical firms expect to see more cotton planted this spring. The National Cotton Council projecting a nearly 4% increase, coming in at 13.1 million acres. Oklahoma farmers are expected to increase their cotton acres 21%, planting 708,000 acres. Tyne Morgan talked with one Oklahoma farmer who says drought will dictate his planting decisions.
Thanks, Clinton. Yeah, earlier this year, National Cotton Council came out with an early estimate showing an increase in overall cotton acres this year, specifically in areas like Kansas and right here in Oklahoma. That's where we could see a large increase. But I talked to some producers say it's the dry weather in areas like this that could temper an overall increase in cotton acres.
It's been immensely dry.
The latest drought monitor showing 61% of the state is suffering from dry conditions, and the worst sets in the west. As Greg Black prepares to plant this spring, the bleak moisture situation is hindering him from planting more cotton this year.
We're not going to increase acres. We're going to keep it the same amount of acres. And that way we feel like we can limit our risks there.
The drought picture has become much more grave since just last fall, when 64% of the state was drought-free. It was a hopeful water picture in 2017 that prompted Black's family to plant cotton for the first time since the 1990s.
With the changing in varieties, it definitely has made it to where we felt like it was something that we ought to look at there on the farm to maybe be profitable.
It was a bet the Blacks are glad they made, even deciding after wheat harvest to go back in and plant some double crop cotton acres in 2017.
We had some produce a little over 1,100 pounds, and we were pretty excited about that and had success, but probably wouldn't happen twice.
But he says double crop cotton is a big gamble in this area of the country, and it's that gamble their farm isn't willing to take in 2018. But for some farmers, despite the risk, cotton prices remain fairly strong, and Black says that could buy more overall cotton acres in Oklahoma this year.
When we look at acres and what we had last year, I think we could see maybe another as much as 150, 200,000 more acres possibly.
More acres means more bales to run through the gin, and that comes at a time when some gins haven't even finished chewing through the record crop they witnessed in 2017.
They're still ginning cotton, and there's a chance that we could be ginning cotton in June as we get into our planting season in May and the first part of June. And so, and there's even talks possibly maybe up into July on some of the gins down in that country.
And Clinton, for right here in Oklahoma, it's really infrastructure that's an issue for overall cotton acres. Some producers saying they have to truck their cotton as much as 200 miles to get it ginned. Reporting from Oklahoma, I'm Tyne Morgan for Ag Day.
During her trip to western Oklahoma yesterday, that part of the state received some badly needed rains. The state's winter wheat crop has struggled this winter. USDA says the amount of crop rated in poor to very poor shape fell by 6 points to 66%. Half of the state is in some level of drought. A third of the state is in the most dire level of drought. But the impact on Oklahoma cattle producers may be limited.
The number of cattle potentially impacted with the drought where it is now is smaller, quite a bit smaller than it was. And so I'm not really looking for general market impacts, but obviously for those producers caught in that, the next few weeks will be very critical in terms of whether or not they can move forward with kind of normal production plans or whether they really have to go into drought contingency plans.
Back to cotton. Tennessee farmers are also preparing to plant an increased amount in cotton this spring, about 1.5% more, as they switch away from corn and wheat. Tennessee farmers will go into fields knowing a major threat is no longer there. Boll weevils are gone from cotton, but farmers still face plenty of other challenges. UT's Charles Denny has this crop preview.
Folks who know cotton say Tennessee's production has momentum. Commodity prices are projected to be good for farmers, and the ag economy seems to point to a nice uptick in acreage this year.
2017, we were about 340,000 acres. I fully expect to break 380, maybe get up into the low 400 range.
Dr. Tyson Raper with UT Extension was one of the organizers of Cotton Focus in Jackson, where farmers heard about trends in production and prices. Attending that conference, Lake County's John Lindemood, who last year grew more than 1% of Tennessee's cotton by himself. What's helped tremendously in recent times, getting rid of a harmful pest.
It's hard now to look back and attribute increases in yields to one thing or another, but there's no doubt that eradicating the boll weevil played a significant role in our increased yields.
Boll weevils were the bane of southern cotton for decades. Weevils lay eggs in cotton and eat their way through the plant. But no more. Eradication programs in the early 2000s all but wiped out boll weevils.
Tennessee now has been boll weevil free for over a decade. Long and short of it is that was our #1 pest, and it's gone, and it's saved us a lot of yield over the years.
While the boll weevils have been banished from these fields, cotton farmers face other issues. Producers have to play a money game, as cotton typically is an expensive business venture. For now, this growing season starts soon, and what should help make it a success? A critter that's notably missing from these fields. This is Charles Denny reporting.
While NAFTA partners Canada and Mexico initially received an exemption on the steel and aluminum tariff imposed by the U.S., it appears that pass was not long-term. President Trump now saying he will slap those metal tariffs on Canada and Mexico on May 1st if he's not satisfied with renegotiations of NAFTA. There is added pressure to finish the talks this spring. Mexico has said it needs a deal by the end of April. Otherwise, talks might as well stretch past the country's summer election and then U.S. midterm elections this fall. Mike Hoffman joining us once again with a look at crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Let's head over to snowless Wisconsin. Becca Hilby is showing off one of the cutest calves on her operation named Alexa. Becca jokes that Alexa may be part dog. As you can see, she's got the head tilted down. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see fairly windy across the northern plains, parts of the southeast as we start the day today. The winds will pick up in the west and the southeastern parts of the country, and you can see as we head toward tomorrow morning, that cold front from the central plains into the western Great Lakes is going to be the focus for the winds, and that will continue moving southeast as we head through the afternoon hours tomorrow. We'll have your forecast coming up in a few minutes, but first here are some hometown temps.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
Up next, Matt Bennett joins us at the Agribusiness Desk as we look at how the market may respond to Thursday's USDA reports. Plus, we retrace the humble beginnings of a well-known frozen pizza brand.
With a uniquely powerful formulation of proven ingredients, Resicor corn herbicide gives you extraordinary power.
Who wants dessert?
At least when it comes to weeds.
In agribusiness, it was a mostly down day on the grain boards. Let's get details from Joe Vaklovic at the CNN.
The corn market traded both sides of unchanged in a pretty quiet session here on Tuesday. Things have leveled off this week. We saw some volatility in the corn market late last week. It had to do with trade tensions between the U.S. and China, all sorts of tariff talk floating around, but we've leveled off here. The live cattle market traded mostly higher here on Tuesday, rebounding after a string of losses. It's been a pretty ugly couple of weeks for the live cattle futures in general. We've seen a big sell-off in every month, starting with the front month, April, which is the highest price on the board, and into the lower price deferred months. The box beef market's held together well, although some people think that it may be vulnerable with futures and cash both moving lower. So we've had a nice trade in the choice boxes for a while in the mid-220 20s. A lot of traders believe that that's a number that may come down here during the coming days, given weaker futures and given weaker cash cattle. Again, Joe Veck from CME Group here in Chicago.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk today, we have Matt Bennett, Bennett Consulting. Matt, as we look at the big report that we're expecting this week, that's the acreage report, should be out at the end of the week. Where do you think we're positioned as an industry? And generally, people want to talk mostly corn and soybeans because that seems to be the biggest number to play with.
I think it sure seems that the Outlook Forum numbers at 90 and 90 weren't all that far off maybe from what the trade was looking at. You still see a ratio that would be conducive to bean acres being fairly robust whenever we look at some of the historical aspects of that ratio. And so are we going to come in at 90 and 90 a little bit more? I mean, some people are saying 2.5 million, 3 million acres more beans than corn.
Wow.
I don't know that that's in the trade yet, though. I think the trade's probably looking at maybe like a 90.5 to a 91 on soybeans and maybe 89.5 on corn. So I think whenever if you would get sub 89 on corn, it would definitely be a very friendly thing for the long term. If you get above, 91.5, 92 on soybeans, it could be something that would at least throw a little bit of a wet towel on the fire right now. It's not that it's going to hold us back forever, but it's certainly going to make it tough to rally.
Yeah, especially on the soybeans. But if you hit 92 on soybeans, what does that mean for corn? That's got to be friendly for that crop, right?
Right. We had 180 combined last year, just a little bit over. Obviously, cotton's making a push for acreage this year. Wheat, you're looking at some spring wheat that might be going in the ground. A lot of folks in the upper Midwest are saying, hey, this makes a little bit more sense. Are you going to have 180 combined? Probably going to have 180 combined, especially the rally that we've seen since the January report. Corn and beans have kind of staked their claim. Hey, we don't want to lose a whole lot of production, but if it is 180 combined and you're at 91.5, math major would probably tell you 88.5 on corn.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think that bottom line 180 plus maybe could happen. I don't think it's going to get a whole lot more than that, though.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on it as we get through this week. It is always interesting. Of course, weather dependent, right?
Absolutely.
We got to get it in at some point. Appreciate it, Matt. We'll be back with more AgDay in just a minute.
For advice on the best way to be profitable on your farm, contact Matt at 217-273-1133. You could win a 2018 John Deere Gator from Valent USA. Visit valentfullyloaded.com to enter.
Welcome back to AgDay. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at the root zone moisture map. And Mike, it's always interesting to see where it's wet and where it's dry. And this is a historical average.
Yes, it's against what is normal for these different places, and it's always a case of the haves and the have-nots. That's typical in the weather. And our root zone moisture is measured directly from a NASA satellite, so there's no human involvement. It's actually showing wetter than normal conditions, Tennessee Valley, parts of the Ohio Valley, and from Nebraska and western Iowa all the way up through Montana. Now the interesting thing is, if you watch our drought monitor, there's parts of the Dakotas and eastern Montana that are still in a drought, but this is the moisture in the upper levels, so that should help that drought situation over time. Unfortunately, we continue to see the lack of rainfall in West Texas, back into the Four Corner region, very dry areas there. Let's take a look at the weather map today. We're going to see some more moisture from central and eastern Texas all the way up into the Ohio Valley, a little bit of snow in New England, a little bit of rain and snow through the northern tier of states there, with that next cold front kind of dropping southward. Later today, some big thunderstorms showing up on our computer model, parts of eastern Texas into Louisiana. Wherever those hit may put down some huge amounts of rain, and we have that scattered rain all the way into the mid-Atlantic as we head through tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. Next area of low pressure riding up that front into the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. By tomorrow morning, you can see multiple cold fronts coming southward. That's going to keep things on the chilly side from the northern plains across the Great Lakes into the northeast. And you can see by later in the day tomorrow, lots of rain, eastern Great Lakes all the way southward into the New Orleans area. And still with more cold fronts coming southward. Precipitation estimate past 24 hours, lots of it from Texas all the way into the Ohio Valley. Adding in the next 36 hours, our model is showing some of these big thunderstorms in East Texas, parts of Louisiana, dropping 10 to 12 inches of rain in places. We'll have to wait and see on that. It's just a computer model at this point. That's all rain, obviously. It's snow farther north, mainly in Canada and mainly in the higher elevations of the Rockies, but it could be some pretty heavy stuff in the eastern Rockies, especially way up in the higher levels. As far as temperatures this afternoon, 70s and 80s in the southeast, cool across most of the Corn Belt. Colder air, though, coming southward, as you can see, lows tomorrow morning into the mid-20s in the Canadian southern portions of Canada into New Mexico, and that cold air will continue to come southward. But at least for a change, it's kind of mild in the southeast. You can see on the jet stream, though, we're going to see this big cutoff developing near Hudson Bay. That'll keep things chilly in the north, but it could allow some warm-ups farther south. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to St. George, Utah, first of all, mostly sunny, warmer, high of 73 degrees. Rock Island, Illinois, partly sunny and milder with a high of 58. And Durham, North Carolina, mostly cloudy skies on the mild side, afternoon high of 71.
Up next, news from the Packer. We'll see how those popular cuties are trying to work their way into Easter baskets. And while it's probably still breakfast time around your house, is it too early in the day to talk pizza? One produce company is urging the Easter Bunny to cut back on delivering jelly beans and chocolate and to choose a healthier route this Easter. Sun Pacific, the owner and producer of the Clementine Mandarin Produce Cutie, launching a spring social media campaign encouraging parents to purchase the product throughout the rest of the season. The company's posting ideas on creating cutie-themed Easter baskets, gifts, and even placing an Easter sticker on the produce. California cuties are sold through April until the summer shipments begin. Atop the many high-rises of Hong Kong, there's a growing number of vegetable gardens. It's where rooftop farming is taken to the extreme. These volunteers are picking lettuce on the decommissioned helipad of the 40-story Bank of America Tower. The farm is run by Rooftop Republic, a 3-year-old startup whose founders are tapping growing interest in organic food. They're taking advantage of unused roof space in the cramped, high-rent city.
Where the food comes from, that is safe, and basically we eat a lot of food every day, but exactly where does it come from? And is there any chance I can be more involved in it besides just eating it?
Hong Kong imports almost all of its food, much of it from mainland China. Public awareness about food safety has risen after countless food contamination scandals on the mainland. Up next, a simple pizza with a simple name grew into a nationally recognized favorite in the country is next.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
Throughout the Midwest and much of the U.S., you'll probably find a Jack's frozen pizza sitting in the freezer, ready for the kids to heat up after school. But who is this Jack we speak of? In this video provided by the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board, we hear about the humble beginnings of a now well-known pizza brand.
Sometimes it's hard to believe that Jack's Pizza, a mainstay in the frozen food aisle, all started in a garage in Little Chute, Wisconsin.
Jack's Pizza was founded by John Toby Elric and his wife Irene, and they had this vision to create a perfect pizza that they could share with their neighbors and their surrounding communities.
In 1960, John, also known as Jack, built a pizza kitchen in his garage and delivered pizzas in and around Little Chute using the family sedan. In 1971, Jack's entered the frozen pizza market and continues to grow as a national brand.
From the very beginning, Jack's was all about blending the perfect combination of prime meats, fresh sauce, and the finest cheeses. And while the company has grown, we still stay very true to those same aspects, making sure that that recipe stays the same.
The cheese is sourced from local farms, including Foremost Farms Cooperative in Appleton.
Most farms and Nestle have a shared value when it comes to quality. We have local access to quality milk that we put into our cheese to deliver the strictest requirements put on us by Nestle for the cheese that we put on their pizzas.
And with Jack's being the #1 pizza brand in several Midwestern states, it's here to stay.
The Wisconsin cheese is very important to us. One, it levels back to our heritage and roots here in Wisconsin, but it also allows us to give back to our communities, supporting the local dairy farmers, making sure that farms continue to thrive in the communities.
And that's Wisconsin Dairy News.
Nestle bought the Jack's Pizza line and other pizza brands from Kraft Foods in January 2010 for a hefty sum of $3.7 billion. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.